Um,
Hi, this is Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the Tiny House Summit. Bonnielee Cuevas is here from Bohemian Eco Love. Okay, what better name could there be?
Thank you.
What is Bohemian Eco Love?
Well, it's a generalization of who I am. I'm definitely not conventional. Bohemian is someone that tends to go against the grain and lives an unconventional life. And that's the bohemian part. And then eco love is just my passion for minimalism and sustainability and everything that I'm doing out here on my tiny house and homestead.
Okay, so where is that tiny house and homestead?
It's located in Tennessee, and I am actually 2,000 feet above sea level in the mountains. So I'm quite far up there, and I have a little 15-acre homestead out here. Oh,
There's surely a story that gets you there. Sorry, the sirens in the background. There's surely a story that gets you there. What got you to this homestead?
I had read a story about a mom. At the time, I had gone through a divorce. I had been married for over a decade, and I had moved to New York City, as most of my work was there. And I read a story about a mom that had built a tiny house and bought a farm and started living this life. And it really spoke to me because I've always been the kind of person that appreciates minimalism and a quiet setting. I've always loved the countryside. I've always loved everything about farming and sort of living this really unique lifestyle. And I ended up moving to Florida to start working on my dream. And fast forward, here I am in Tennessee. It just seemed like the most perfect place to be.
Okay, so how much of your own food are you actually growing?
So last season, we grew a lot of our vegetables. So a lot of our vegetable consumption came from the garden. And this year, our goal is to double that food source and eventually get to the point where we've completely eliminated the grocery store experience so that we're not going to the grocery store to buy everything that you typically would. We will make that ourselves and just go to our garden and grab that.
So I'm not sure that the math works exactly right, but are you at half of your grocery expense right now, getting your own food?
I would say about a quarter of it.
That's pretty decent.
A lot of our food, at least during the summer, was vegetable based. I used to be vegan. I'm not anymore. But I have a great respect for animals and I take care of my animals really well. So during the summer, a lot of my meals were vegetable based. I mean, we had spaghetti squash with a combination of like onions and tomatoes. It was just really neat to be able to experiment with food and it coming out of your own garden. It's an incredible experience.
Okay, and how big is your living space?
So my tiny house is 200 square feet, and then with the lofts, it's a total of 340 square feet.
And who lives in it?
It is my son and I, and we are here, and my on again, off again partner. He comes and goes, but yeah, yeah, it's 340 square feet, and it's my son and I, and it's actually enough space for us. We've made it work. We love it. The only thing is that my son is growing in height, and he's going to be 6 feet, within months. So this summer he wants to start building his own tiny house. And then this will all be mine, this little mansion, this little palace.
Nice. He wants to build his own second generation tiny house.
Yes, and I'm totally encouraging it.
Okay, how old is he?
He is 14.
Okay, so that would be an amazing project for a 15-year-old to build a tiny house.
It is. We have a frame already, so this one will not be on wheels. And the frame was already there, and he just needs to start putting up the walls and, go from there. So he's really excited. It's a neat thing for a 14-year-old to be able to build and own his own house.
Okay, before we get to your build, I want to ask some more questions about the homestead. So is your 15 acres remote, or are you at sort of the edge of 15 acres where you're close to other people?
No, it is very remote. So your neighbors aren't actually your neighbors. You have acres and acres and acres in between you. And I think my property spans a couple of miles.
Okay, and so are you going to the store once a week, or is it close enough you can go daily if you needed to?
It's about 45 minutes to an hour to get to the nearest town. There is a smaller little town, but there's nothing there, and that's about 30 minutes away.
Okay, so I take it if you're living that far from lots of other people, you're okay living alone.
I am. It took some getting used to. The first night we were here, it was sort of a jolting experience because as much as I'm a country girl at heart, I'm also from the city. So, at first you're like, oh my gosh, we have animals that roam here. You have to be aware of people that come onto your property because it's so large. I mean, someone could be in my property and I would have no idea. But what makes it comforting for me, one night I looked up and I realized that I was just surrounded by stars and trees, and it was the most comforting experience. And, it was worth the entire process of going through this. And I'm actually very comfortable being on the property here with my son. You do have to have protection. Typically out here, that's the normality. And most people don't come onto your property without honking the horn first. And and all of my neighbors, I know them. They've become an extension of my family. So it's been really great.
Okay, and does your son have the same temperament? Is he okay being that remote?
He is much more passionate about this lifestyle than I am. He quickly fit in. His dad is a Marine. So, I mean, my son just loves everything about it. He can camp, he can hunt, he can do all of these things. And the tiny house lifestyle just fit in with who he is and what he's about. He loves woodworking. So I cannot be more proud and encourage his passions.
Is he homeschooling?
He is homeschooled.
Is he homeschooled or unschooled?
It's a combination of both, depending on, he's a very structured kid, so he'll ask me for certain subjects that he wants to study, and I'll send him a lesson plan. But typically, we unschool.
Nice. That's a whole other conference, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about your build. So where did you see your first tiny house?
It was actually Macy Miller. Her tiny house was the first one I had seen.
You actually saw it physically or you saw it online?
No, I saw it online. I had read about it. That was the first tiny house I had ever seen.
Okay, so then where's the story go from there?
I just started doing research, and to this day, I cannot find the article with the single mom that built a tiny house and bought a farm. And I know I did not imagine it because I showed it to my mom, and she remembers reading the same article. And to this day, we cannot find the link or anything. And I just kept going from there, and I realized I worked in fashion. I was a fashion journalist, and I did marketing and PR in New York City. And I was tired of the sort of superficiality of it all. And again, I'm this sort of gypsy bohemian kind of person, and I want unconventional, and I wanted a life that was mine, and I had great freedom. And I lived in New York City, so it was incredibly expensive to live there. And, I was just done. And I told my mom, hey, I'm going to pack up and move to Florida and, take JR, that's my son, and, start planning and saving and building this life. And she was like, okay. And she's incredibly supportive. My family, all of them were. And I moved to Florida. I moved in with my grandparents and started freelancing as a writer and saving money. And, I wanted to live this lifestyle. And I ended up in Tennessee because Tennessee, where I live, it's not that we don't have code enforcement, it's that we don't have someone to actually come out and inspect. And where I live, it's so rural that, there are actually a lot of tiny houses here.
Interesting. Yeah, I've met a builder from Tennessee. What's your closest big city?
Chattanooga, and I am in Bledsoe County.
Yeah, Chattanooga has its own cool culture.
Very, very true.
Okay, and so did you buy or build?
So I bought the shell to my house. I either wanted to live in a little tiny church or a little tiny barn, and I ended up with the tiny barn with the barn doors and everything.
Okay, and you're on wheels.
I am not on wheels. I am on skids. We can have it moved anywhere, but no, I am not on wheels.
Okay, so you're not on wheels, but did you build in Florida?
No, I bought the frame here from a Tennessee company, which I absolutely love, and they delivered it. I have really cool video of them bringing it in and setting it up on the property, and then my partner and I were began building the inside and building it out.
Okay, and how much experience had you had previously doing that kind of work?
When it comes to sustainability, it came from a fashion standpoint, so I understood the logistics of it all. Construction, I had no construction experience. My partner had over 20 years experience, and I learned through the entire process, and now I'm able to build a lot of things on my own. Some things I'm still very much afraid of, like the saw, but my son comes in that area and he does a lot of that for me.
Okay, it does help to have somebody with 20 years experience.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and so how long did the from shell to finished did it take?
About a year. I did it completely debt free. I still have a few things to finish in the house, and that'll be my son and I finishing it. But a year. Every
And
time
where
I
did
got
you live during the year?
in the house. I know it's crazy, and I do not recommend anyone ever do that ever. It was sort of like this puzzle piece because as we were constructing, we would have to move stuff to one side and cover it, and it was a disaster. I'm still slightly in construction, and I recently posted somewhere and I said, does it ever feel like it's going to end? But I think it's ever evolving because as you get older, you change, and there are different things you change up in your space.
So, did you have a cold winter?
Um, no, we immediately put in the wood stove, so other things went on the back burner, and the wood stove is an incredible thing. It's free heat, but not without work. So we have to cut our trees, cut our logs, chop our wood, and but I've never experienced heat the way a wood stove puts it out. I'm very spoiled. I love it.
Okay, and are you off grid?
I am off grid
So, where are you getting your electrical?
right now. It is solar power. I completely run on solar. I have four 100-watt panels and this whole entire setup. And I'd like to double our capacity as time goes by. I got a really great deal on my panels, and when I purchased them, I mean, they were under market price. So,
And what are you doing for internet?
I actually have a telephone. It's through the telephone company. It's the only, uses electricity because you plug in the modem, but they came out. So I guess that's the only on-grid thing I have.
So, is it DSL? I mean, is it cable or
Is DSL.
DSL? Okay, so you have internet, but everything else you're supplying your own electricity.
Yes. Well is our water.
Yeah, what are
Um,
you doing for a toilet?
I use the humanure compost method.
Nice. Well, you're really living a self-sustaining life. I mean, if you can get double your food production and not have to go to the grocery store, you're pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah, I think that what I love about it is this sense of freedom. So there's no reliability on anything or anyone. Not that we don't need each other. I believe, in friends and family and having people around me. I have a great appreciation for the relationships in my life. Um, but it's really nice to be able to take care of yourself and, God forbid money disappeared tomorrow, I'm able to feed my family and, take care of our needs without, a huge strain or stress on our part.
Yeah, how much of your motivation is independence and freedom, and how much of it is wanting to be prepared? Or do you fall into the prepper category?
I want to say I do and I don't. I believe that we should definitely prep. You never know. I mean, even if it's for a natural disaster, we should always be prepared. This lifestyle has definitely given me more insight. So, I mean, even my vehicles have flashlights and things that I, as a very spoiled person in the past, wouldn't have thought, oh my gosh, I need this in my vehicle just in case something happens. I have everything I need to fix a flat tire and a blanket and all these things. So, Yes, I do believe in prepping, but not to a maniacal sort of, standpoint.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you get to this part of the country out in the remote areas, you do find some pretty serious preppers.
You do. A lot of my neighbors are preppers, but they're also not maniacal. They all have jobs. They all focus on living a happy, fruitful life. For me, it's also the sustainability aspect. I wanted to lessen my carbon footprint. I have a great respect for, the earth and the land, and I take care of it very well. And I mean, I'm constantly picking up garbage that has somehow ended up on my property even years later. And, um, I just think we need to take care of our planet, and it's important. And that's one of the reasons why I live this minimalist, sustainable lifestyle.
Okay, so if this is sensitive, you don't have to answer the question. Just tell me. But buying the frame, building out the house, buying the land, how much did this cost?
So the land was it was about 4,000 an acre. So I mean, it was still incredibly inexpensive compared to what most people pay for land. Um, and then my shell was only about $3,000. I think at the end of this for the house, under 15,000 is what I'll have put in it, and then with the land, um, it was 15 acres and then at 4,000 an acre. So not too expensive. Um, it's also something I said, and I've said this a lot in the past, is leaving a legacy for my son and something that he can inherit. My family, they have beautiful homes and beautiful, they're little tiny half an acre and they're gorgeous little houses, but they have a 30-year mortgage. And although I did this little by little, every time I got paid, completely debt free, I don't leave that debt to my son. He completely inherits the land, the houses. It's all his. I mean, he can do what he wants with it, but at least it's something that I can leave to him.
Yeah, did you ever read Little House on the Prairie?
I did. I love that book, that series.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have three daughters, and so I read that book aloud or the series several times. There are a lot of things I really remember from that series. Some of it is the sort of the freedom and independence, and there's an interesting story with her daughter, who I think sort of ghost wrote a lot of the books. But there's also this hardship. Are you experiencing any of the hardship?
Every day. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I also run a business in town. So I do travel, to the nearest town several times a week. So I have to get up at 4:30. And there is this hardship, but the way I've explained it is that at the end of the day, you have something tangible. So if you put in 8 hours on the homestead and 3 hours in your tiny house, you see the fruits of your labor, and there's this incredible gratification because you've seen it come to fruition. So I mean, our mornings are early. We definitely have to prepare. I mean, winters are can be really tough. We can get stuck on the mountain for up to 2 weeks or more. So we want to make sure our wood is stocked. We want to make sure that our animals are taken care of. um, a lot of my stuff that we've built is also recycled and upcycled materials. um, One thing that I've had to learn, coming from a fashion background and coming from this very much aesthetics lifestyle to this minimalist sustainable lifestyle, is that not just lessening my carbon footprint, but also not being an overspender. And sometimes it's not always about aesthetics. Sometimes it has been about practicality. So sometimes things are covered in blue tarps. I have written about these blue tarps, I mean, all over the internet. I hate them, but they're practical and they're efficient really quick when you need to cover something or protect something. Um, a lot of the animal areas are from recycled, upcycled materials, and they've been built. The structures have been built, but you have to paint them. You have to do all of these things. Taking care of farm animals, it's a lot of work, but we love it. I don't know how to explain it. I have this really neat experience that every time, every season, at the start of every season, you sort of feel the weather start to change, and you know that winter's coming or fall's coming. And I typically go outside, and one morning, this has happened to me ever since. I went outside and I could feel the season changing. I looked around and I sort of felt, and I'm not by any means a religious person. I'm probably not even very spiritual, but I call myself spiritual. And I said, and to this day, have felt the presence of what one would call God. It was just a really neat experience. And I realized, wow, this is all mine. And I get to see the seasons change, and I get to exchange, and I get to experience these beautiful things. You know, we have a flowing creek that's seasonal, and animals and these things. And it just gave me a really great sense of gratification for what we're doing and trying to do.
This is an intriguing movement, in part because it's so gender balanced. What's it been like as a woman to do this?
Um, Being in an on again off again relationship, I think that it's made me realize that I am capable of a lot. As a woman, I think that women tend to be afraid of, going into construction or figuring it out on your own. And what I realize is if I mess something up, I can always fix it. I realized that I'm also the influence. My ex-husband and I co-parent, even though he's in another state, and my son's dad and stepmom. But I'm my son's only role model here. So I want him to see that women are fully capable of accomplishing anything and everything. That also for him to realize that sometimes we have to push through our fears. It's an incredible opportunity to find yourself and realize that we as humans are capable of a lot. It's scary sometimes because I don't want to mess up, and I think that's just society's influence. So now I'm just like, I mess up, it's okay, I can totally fix it, I am fully capable, and I have accomplished a lot here, and I continue to surprise myself and surprise my family. And my goal for the next few years is to learn construction a lot better. I do have people that support me and come out and, check everything and are there and have taught my son and I a lot. But to be able to gain more knowledge and continue to persevere, I love it.
Do you think I'm accurate when I have this perception that the movement is gender balanced?
I think so. I've seen some really incredible men and women, especially women, that have accomplished so much in this industry, in this lifestyle. And I just think it's so incredible to see people create spaces that define who they are, and it's not conventional. So what I love most, one of the people I really like is Vera. She's done everything herself. She's, an older woman. She's just a really neat, cool person. Macy is one I saw. Jewel was her own, I believe, from Miss Gypsy, so her own contractor, and everything in her space is incredible and gorgeous. And so women are paving the way and doing their own really unique things as well. So I believe it's pretty balanced.
Yeah, that would be my sense as well. It doesn't feel very color balanced.
No, I think that maybe it's tough. I come from I'm from New York City, so people do call me naive because if I don't see the lack of color balance, it's only because I've always lived in an environment where I never noticed it. It wasn't something that I needed to notice. I think that maybe people, this is an assumption, so forgive me. I think, maybe people of color don't. I heard someone once say that it reminds them just of another time or another life, a hardship. But what I have found and surrounded myself with is a lot of really great women of color. I met someone. I was in New Jersey for my birthday at an apple orchard, and I'm in a little carriage or whatever, and this woman begins to talk about tiny house living and homesteading, and I immediately gave her my information, and we've stayed in touch through Facebook, and she is buying property and going to build a tiny house up north. And so I think people do want this lifestyle, and also owning something. I think that's important as a I'm an Afro Latina, so I'm Black and Spanish. For me to own something and take care of my own land, it's a beautiful thing. I'm not colorblind, um, but I think people are coming to and seeing the viability of this lifestyle, and that it's a much richer lifestyle in experiences, and that you can own something a lot sooner than sort of keeping up with the Joneses. And if people are, exclusive, I mean, you can't control what other people do. I can only control what I do.
Yeah, I mean, if you look around the world, the great majority of the world's population live tiny,
Mhm.
right? So the choice to go from an expectation of large to smaller probably defines a certain segment of society already.
Correct.
Okay, what do you now? If you sort of you've withdrawn, I'm not saying you're completely withdrawn, but you're self sufficient, you're homesteading, you own land, you've built your own home. How do you think about life and culture differently?
Um, well, life, I have a greater appreciation for it. I have this really great sense of gratitude, and I think with everything that's going on in the world today, um, I'm just very thankful that I get to do what I do. I remind my son that I'm like, you live a pretty cool life, so I'm grateful. Um, and I guess at the end of it all, I'm just grateful. I have a great appreciation for everything and everything this lifestyle brings.
So I don't want to presume these threads tie together, but let me propose it and see what you think. So part of it is that you're homeschooling, right?
Mhm.
And part of it is that you're growing your own food. So in a lot of ways, you're living in a small house, you're sort of choosing to deinstitutionalize, right? And does that, I mean, as you look at sort of consumer society and you look at the other things that sort of normal America does, do you see sort of a larger thread of your own life where all of these pieces come together?
I do. I sort of stepped away from conventionalism because I think that people or society tries to put us in a little box. I've said that about religion, that it puts God in a little box. Society tries to put people in a little box. And I think we're about so much more than that. So I have sort of stepped away from that because I wanted to be completely free. And what I mean by that is not to sort of care what people think. Now, am I a compassionate person? Absolutely. I do have great compassion and love for other people. And I am totally all about peace and love. But for the life that I wanted to live, I wanted to be healthy mentally, spiritually, physically. And I had to step away from what people thought I should do or who they thought I should be.
Yeah, and this is a tricky territory, right? And it's not necessarily what other people think, but it's that institutions end up creating a their own internal motivation, right? And
Mhm.
so banking, pharmaceutical, um, food, these industries exist in a lot of ways to serve themselves. And it feels like there's this historical shift where people are saying, I'm not sure that's actually what I want to do.
Mhm. Absolutely. What I love about this lifestyle is this whole communal experience that we have here. All of our neighbors are live a similar lifestyle. We're all about helping each other. If they have extra food or vegetables or cooked another, a meal and there's leftovers, we're constantly sharing. I mean, and we're far away from each other, but I wanted to step away from that, and I didn't want to sort of be forced to do what someone else or these institutions thought that we should do. We have a really happy little life up here, and my family has seen a change as well, and they're coming along and seeing. Like my mother arrives today from New York City, or she lives in Jersey now. And she's so excited. It's the first time she's staying on the property, and she's like, "I'm bringing my boots, and I'm going to, help you on the farm, and I'm going to rough it with you." My mom's this blonde-haired, blue-eyed, hazel-eyed Barbie doll, and I'm like, "Okay, mom, like we can do this. It's fun, and it's great to see people motivated."
Are there any kind of larger lessons that you really want to share with people?
Yeah, I think that what I found is that there's a lot of comparison about what a tiny house should look like or how much it should cost. And I just want to tell people that if your house costs 2,000 or yours costs 100,000, it's your space. Be respectful of others and their journey. That 2,000 for someone is a lot and an incredible thing for them, just as much as 100,000 is for another person and their commitment to, you know, building and living this lifestyle, and to also find things to be grateful for along the journey. It's about the journey, not always the destination. And I think it's just have fun. I mean, you are literally building your house the way you want, your home sweet home.
What would your son say? What do you think your son would say? What would he want to communicate to other youth?
To He's definitely the kind of person that is committed to something. He wants to see himself succeed, and this lifestyle gives him that as well because he puts the work into it and he sees it immediately. So not to get down on yourself, to do and stay committed to it. And even if you don't understand it, find people that can teach you along the way. Because my son has learned so much from our neighbors, and it's because he wanted to soak up all this knowledge and he's constantly seeking it. So continue to seek stuff and just have fun. Don't worry about don't worry about what other people are doing. Find people that are going to support you along the way.
Maybe we could get him to present next year.
That would be amazing.
I actually run a global student conference. We have student presenters. I'll send you information about it.
I would love that. I would love for him to watch that. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, speaking of watching, so I'm guessing you don't have a television.
No, I don't. I have Netflix and Hulu.
I was going to say, so do you draw the line? I mean, do you watch time-shifted television? Do you watch Netflix and Hulu?
On occasion, I'll sort of binge watch certain shows, but it's typically, gosh, I can't remember. I think it's been like 2 weeks since I watched anything on Netflix or Hulu. I don't miss it. It's just I have so much going on, and yeah, I don't watch TV.
Okay, I haven't asked anybody else these questions, but I'm totally curious. What's your favorite book?
Oh, let's see. Okay, so I read a book when I was 11. It was called The Summer of My German Soldier. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and To Kill a Mockingbird. I cried in that. Every time I read that book, I cry. So these are all really sad books. I have no idea why.
What are your favorite movies?
Okay, so I'm a hopeless romantic. So You've Got Mail, P.S. I Love You, Breakfast at Tiffany's. So those are my top 3 favorite movies.
Okay, yeah, but I didn't hear Mad Max. I didn't hear Captain Fantastic.
Nope. I am a hopeless romantic. Goodness.
So you're a normal person.
I am.
Okay, anything big in store for you coming up?
Just the summer, starting my son's tiny house. I'm trying to get all the neighbors and family to come out and help. So that's, I think, our next biggest project. And then goats. I'll be getting goats. So that's this is the highlight of my life. Goats and another tiny house.
I've never really liked goats.
They're mean.
I cared for some goats for a while. I really prefer the sheep.
Yeah, definitely. And then you can see my cat right there. She's a rescue. I have 9 rescues. She's the only one that's inside. The other ones have their own little shack, is what I call it.
Okay, and there'll be links on the site for people to find you, but do you want to give a shout out to your blog or any kind of a website you want people to go to?
Yeah, you can find me across the board on social media, Bohemian Eco Love, and the site is bohemianecolove.com.
Okay, Bonnielee, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.